The large metal halls of the Galactic Academy Station buzzed with quiet conversation. Young beings from dozens of worlds sat in groups, their strange forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some had crystal skin that caught the light. Others moved with tentacles instead of arms. A few floated in small water tanks, their gills working steadily. Zephyr pressed his crystal fingers against the cool desk surface. His world of Serenity Prime had perfect weather every day. The temperature never changed. Rain fell exactly when the plants needed it. Nothing ever tried to hurt anyone. He looked around the classroom and saw his friend Vexana floating in her water suit. Her purple tentacles moved in slow waves as she spoke to other students. "I heard they are bringing a human teacher," Vexana said through her translator device. Her voice bubbled like water over stones. "They say humans come from something called a Deathworld." The other students made sounds that meant they found this funny. Crixlon, a tall being with 4 arms, shook his head. Deathworld. What a silly name. Probably just bad weather sometimes. Zephyr had heard the stories too. Humans supposedly came from a planet so dangerous that most life forms would die in minutes. The stories said their world had poison in the air, crushing gravity, and temperatures that could freeze or cook a being alive. It sounded like the kind of tales parents told children to make them behave. "My data files say their planet has something called hurricanes," said Norbith, a small creature covered in soft fur. "Storms so big they can destroy entire cities." "And earthquakes," added another student. "The ground itself moves and breaks apart." The students laughed again. Their worlds were stable and safe. The ground never moved. Storms were gentle and predictable. The idea of a planet actively trying to kill its inhabitants seemed like a joke. The classroom door opened with a soft hiss. Dr. Lisa Chung walked in first. She was the head of xenobiology and one of the few humans at the academy. Behind her came another human, but this one was different. He moved with careful steps, like a hunter watching for prey. His clothes were simple and practical. Scars marked his hands and face. "Students, please welcome Captain Jake Morrison," Dr. Chung said. "He will be teaching you about human civilization and their homeworld of Earth." The human called Morrison looked around the room. His eyes were sharp and seemed to see everything at once. When he smiled, it did not reach those eyes. "Thank you, Dr. Chung." "Hello, students." Zephyr noticed how the other human treated Morrison with respect that seemed almost like fear. Dr. Chung was smart and kind, but she stepped back when Morrison moved forward. There was something about this human that felt different from the few others Zephyr had met. "I know what you have heard about my species," Morrison said. His voice was calm, but carried easily through the room. "You think we tell stories to make ourselves sound tough. You think we make up tales about our dangerous world." Vexana's tentacles moved faster, a sign she was excited. "Is it true that your planet has areas where water falls from great heights with enough force to crush bones?" "Waterfalls," Morrison nodded. "Yes, some are over 1,000 feet tall. The water hits the rocks below with enough power to generate electricity for entire cities." "And storms that can level buildings?" asked Crixlon. "Hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards." Morrison listed them like items on a shopping list. "Earthquakes that can split the ground open. Volcanoes that shoot melted rock into the sky. Floods that can wash away mountains." The students exchanged glances. Either this human was the best storyteller in the galaxy, or these things were actually real. "But surely your people stay away from these dangerous areas," Norbith said. Her fur had changed to a worried gray color. Morrison made a sound that might have been laughter. "We build cities right next to them. San Francisco sits on top of fault lines. New Orleans is below sea level in hurricane country. People in Kansas chase tornadoes with cameras. In Hawaii, they surf waves that could snap a person in half. That makes no sense, Zefter said. His crystal skin had gone pale. Why would anyone choose to live in danger? Because it is our world, Morrison said simply. We adapt, we survive. We even learn to love it. Dr. Chong stepped forward again. Captain Morrison has proposed something unusual. He wants to take a group of volunteer students to see Earth for themselves. The classroom went silent. Visit a Deathworld? The idea was terrifying and exciting at the same time. Of course, we would take every safety measure, Morrison continued. Environmental suits, medical support, emergency evacuation protocols. But I think seeing is better than just hearing stories. Is it safe? Vexana asked. Morrison's smile became real this time. Nothing about Earth is safe. That is the point. But we will keep you as safe as we can. Zefter felt something he had never experienced before. His crystal body tingled with an emotion that had no name on Serenity Prime. It was part fear and part curiosity. The humans stood there calmly talking about volcanoes and hurricanes, like they were normal things. Either humans were completely insane, or they were far tougher than anyone realized. Who would like to volunteer? Morrison asked. Zefter found his hand rising before he could stop it. Around the room, other students did the same. Vexana's tentacles shot up quickly. Even careful Norbeith raised a furry paw. Morrison counted. The raised hands. Excellent. We leave in 3 days. Pack light and prepare yourselves. You are about to see why the galaxy calls Earth a Deathworld. As the students filed out of the classroom, excited chatter filled the halls. Zefter walked. Beside Vexana, both of them quiet for once. Do you think we are making a mistake? Vexana asked finally. Zefter looked back at the classroom where Morrison was speaking quietly with Dr. Chong. The human looked completely relaxed, as if discussing a trip to the most dangerous planet in known space was just another normal day. Maybe, Zefter said, but I think we are about to learn something important. 3 days later, they would board a transport ship bound for Earth. None of them could imagine what they were about to discover about humans, about survival, and about what it really meant to call a world home. The transport ship shuddered as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Zefter gripped his seat with crystal fingers, watching the planet grow larger through the viewport. Swirling white clouds covered huge sections of the surface. Lightning flashed. Inside the clouds like trapped fire. Even from space, Earth looked angry. First time seeing a real weather system? Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez asked. She floated near them in the zero-gravity section, her short black hair pulled back in a tight knot. Like Morrison, she moved with the careful grace of someone always ready for trouble. Those storms, Vexana said through her watersuit speakers. They cover areas larger than our entire continents. Rodriguez looked out the viewport and shrugged. That's just a normal Tuesday. You should see it during storm season. The ship's computer announced their descent with a calm voice that did not match how Zefter felt inside. His environmental readings were going crazy. The gravity was increasing to levels that would crush most beings from his world. The atmospheric pressure outside would collapse his crystal structure in seconds. Suits on, everyone, Rodriguez ordered. The students struggled into their heavy environmental gear. The suits were like small spacecraft, complete with life support, gravity compensators, and emergency medical systems. Even with all that protection, Zefter felt like he was being pressed down by an invisible weight. Norbith whimpered inside her fur-lined suit. The gravity readings must be wrong. Nothing could live under this pressure. Welcome to Earth Standard, Rodriguez said. She wore only a light jacket over normal clothes. 1 G of gravity. Perfect for keeping your feet on the ground. The ship landed with a thump that sent several students stumbling. Through the landing ramp, Zephyr saw their first glimpse of an Earth environment. Tall green plants stretched up toward the sky, some of them wider than the transport ship itself. Everything was huge and wild and alive in a way that made his homeworld seem like a quiet library. "This is Oregon," Morrison said as he joined them at the ramp. "Temperate forest. One of our calmer environments." Calm? Zephyr's suit sensors were screaming warnings about toxic gases, temperature variations, and biological hazards. The air outside contained something called oxygen at levels that would burn the lungs of most species. Water fell from the sky in irregular patterns. The ground was covered with dead plant matter that was somehow still moving and changing. "Stay close to me," Rodriguez said. "And remember, do not remove your helmets for any reason." They walked down the ramp onto soft earth that squished under their feet. Immediately, Zephyr noticed the sounds. His homeworld was quiet and peaceful. This place buzzed and chirped and rustled with constant noise. Something was always moving, always hunting, always being hunted. "What is that?" Visana pointed at a small four-legged creature with fur and sharp teeth. It was stalking something, even smaller through the dead leaves. "House cat," Morrison said. "Domestic predator, pretty harmless to humans." As they watched, the cat pounced on a tiny squeaking animal and killed it with a quick bite to the neck. Several students made sick sounds inside their helmets. On their worlds, animals ate plants or synthesized nutrients. This casual violence was shocking. "Everything here eats something else," Rodriguez explained like she was discussing the weather. "It's called a food chain. Bigger things eat smaller things. Smaller things eat even smaller things." "But that's horrible," Norbeth whispered. Her fur had turned deep black with distress. "It's efficient," Morrison said. "Nothing goes to waste. Death feeds life." They walked deeper into the forest. The trees were impossibly tall, reaching up hundreds of feet into the air. Some were so wide that the entire group could hide behind a single trunk. Zephyr's people built their cities from carefully grown crystal formations. These plants had simply grown wild, fighting each other for sunlight and space. "How old are these trees?" Crixlon asked. Rodriguez looked up at the canopy. "Some of them have been growing for over 1,000 years. They were here before humans discovered this continent. 1,000 years of growth, fighting for survival every single day. No wonder they were so huge." Something howled in the distance. The sound was long and mournful, and full of wild hunger. Every student froze in terror. "Just wolves," Morrison said calmly. "They won't bother us during the day." "Wolves?" Zephyr's translator struggled with the word. "Pack hunters," Rodriguez explained. "They work together to bring down prey much larger than themselves. Smart, social, and very good at what they do." "How large?" Baxana asked nervously. "Oh, maybe 6 feet long, 150 pounds, Morrison said. "The big ones can take down an elk." The students looked around the forest with new eyes. Somewhere out there, creatures the size of small vehicles were hunting in coordinated groups. And the humans walked through this environment like it was a park. "Don't worry," Rodriguez added. "The really dangerous predators live in other parts of the continent." "Really dangerous predators? What could be more dangerous than pack-hunting wolves?" "Like what?" Norbeth asked, though she sounded like she did not really want to know. "Bears," Morrison said. "Grizzly bears can weigh 800 pounds and run 30 miles per hour. Mountain lions are smaller, but can jump 40 feet and climb trees faster than most humans can run." Zephyr did quick calculations in his head. These creatures could catch and kill almost any being from the civilized worlds. Yet humans lived alongside them like it was normal. "And you just walk around out here?" Crixlon asked. "Sure," Rodriguez said. "You learn to be aware of your surroundings." Make noise so you don't surprise anything. Carry bear spray or other deterrents. Most wildlife would rather avoid humans anyway. Most wildlife. That meant some wildlife would not avoid humans. They reached a small clearing where water bubbled up from the ground and formed a stream. Morrison knelt beside it and cupped the water in his hands. He drank it directly. "Stop," Norbith cried. "That water is not processed. It could contain toxins, bacteria, parasites." Morrison wiped his mouth. "Probably does. But I grew up drinking from streams like this. My immune system can handle most of what's in there." His immune system. Zeftar realized that humans did not just survive on this death world by avoiding its dangers. They had actually adapted to live with toxins and diseases that would kill other species. "The water on your world is purified?" Rodriguez asked. "Of course," Vexana said. "Every drop is filtered and treated and tested for safety." "That sounds nice," Rodriguez said. "But it also sounds like it would make you very vulnerable if you ever encountered unclean water." They spent the rest of the day walking through the forest. The humans pointed out different plants and animals, explaining the complex relationships between predators and prey, the seasonal changes that could kill unprepared creatures, and the constant struggle for resources that shaped every living thing. As the sun began to set, the forest sounds changed. Different creatures came out to hunt in the darkness. The students huddled closer together, their suit lights creating a small circle of safety in the growing shadows. "Time to head back to the ship," Morrison said. "Night brings out different hunters, more dangerous ones?" Zeftar asked. Morrison and Rodriguez exchanged a look. "Let's just say humans prefer to be indoors after dark in places like this." As they walked back through the trees, Zeftar thought about what they had seen. This was supposed to be one of Earth's calm environments, a peaceful forest where humans came to relax. Yet it was filled with deadly predators, poisonous plants, contaminated water, and 1,000 different ways to die, and the humans moved through it all like they belonged there. Like they were just another part of the food chain, but somehow at the top of it. "Tomorrow we visit the desert," Morrison said. As they reached the ship, much simpler ecosystem, less complicated. Zefta was not sure he wanted to know what humans considered simple. The Nevada desert hit them like a wall of fire. Even inside their environmental suits, the students could feel the crushing heat. Zeftar's crystal body, designed for the cool caves of Serenity Prime, felt like it might crack from the temperature stress. His suit's cooling system ran at maximum power just to keep him alive. "Surface temperature is 115 degrees, Dr. Greg Foster announced cheerfully. He was a human geologist who wore only light clothes and a hat. Sweat ran down his face, but he seemed comfortable. Perfect weather for a hike. Perfect weather? Vexana's water suit was working overtime to keep her from boiling. How is this perfect for anything except dying? Foster laughed and took a drink from a water bottle. You get used to it. The trick is staying hydrated and not fighting the heat. Not fighting the heat. The humans did not try to avoid their world's dangers. They adapted to them, worked with them, even seemed to enjoy them. Last night, the temperature here dropped to 40 degrees, Morrison said. That's a 75-degree swing in 12 hours. A student stared at him. On their worlds, temperature might change by a few degrees over an entire season. Here, it changed enough to kill most species twice every day. And you live in places like this? Crixlon asked. Las Vegas is about 50 miles that way. Foster pointed toward some distant mountains. 2 million people. Phoenix has 5 million. Death Valley gets even hotter than this, and people still visit it for vacation. Vacation. Humans came to places that could kill them for fun. They walked across the sand and rock, following Foster as he explained the geology. The ground beneath their feet was shifting constantly. worn down by millions of years of wind and temperature changes. In the distance, mountains rose like broken teeth against the sky. See that ridge? Foster pointed to a jagged line of rocks. That's where two tectonic plates meet. They're constantly grinding against each other, building up pressure. Pressure for what? Norbith asked nervously. Earthquakes, Foster said casually. When the pressure gets too high, the ground just breaks apart and moves. Sometimes a few inches, sometimes several feet. The ground itself moved. Zephyr tried to imagine his crystal cities, dealing with the earth suddenly shifting beneath them. Everything would shatter in seconds. How often does this happen? Vexana asked. Small ones happen all the time. You can't even feel most of them. The big ones are less common, but when they hit. Foster shrugged. Well, that's why we build our structures to flex instead of break. They climbed a small hill, the humans moving easily while the students struggled in their heavy suits. At the top, Foster stopped and pointed to a distant peak. That's a volcano, he said. Dormant right now, but it erupted about 700 years ago. Covered this entire area in ash and lava. Molten rock shooting from the ground. Zephyr's translator had trouble with the concept. His world was stable, predictable, safe. This planet seemed designed to kill anything living on it. And people still live here? Crixlon asked. Sure, Foster said. The soil around volcanoes is incredibly fertile. Some of the best farmland on Earth is in volcanic regions. We just keep an eye on seismic activity and have evacuation plans ready. Evacuation plans. Humans planned for their planet to try to kill them, and stayed anyway out as they walked. Foster picked up rocks and explained how they formed. Some were created by ancient seas that had dried up millions of years ago. Others were forged in the heat deep underground and pushed to the surface by geological forces. Each rock told a story of violence and change. Your world must be very young, Foster said to Zephyr. Crystal formations like your people's cities require extremely stable conditions over long periods. Serenity Prime has been stable for over 10 million years, Zephyr said proudly. No geological activity, no climate changes, no dangerous weather. That sounds peaceful, Foster said, but also kind of boring. Boring? Zephyr could not understand how anyone would prefer chaos and danger to peace and stability. They reached a small oasis where water bubbled up from deep underground. Palm trees provided shade, and the temperature dropped by a few degrees. Foster knelt by the water and splashed some on his face. Natural spring, he explained. Water travels down through the rock for years. It's heated by geothermal activity, then comes back up pure and clean. Is it safe to drink? Norbith asked. Foster cupped some in his hands and drank. Tastes great. High mineral content from all the rock it passed through. Once again, a human consumed something that could contain deadly bacteria or toxic minerals. And once again, he seemed perfectly fine. Our next stop is Niagara Falls, Morrison announced. Time to see what moving water can really do. The flight to Niagara took 3 hours. From the air, the landscape below looked like a patchwork of different environments. Green forests gave way to brown deserts, which became white mountains, which turned into vast areas of cultivated land. Each region would be lethal to most galactic species, yet humans had found ways to live in all of them. The sound of the falls reached them long before they could see the water. It was a deep rumbling that seemed to come from the planet itself. When they finally stood at the viewing area, the students were struck silent. Water fell from a height of over 150 feet, carrying thousands of tons of liquid every second. The noise was deafening even through their helmets. Mist rose up like clouds, and the ground shook under their feet from the constant impact. 168,000 cubic meters per minute, Morrison shouted over the roar. That's enough water to fill a swimming pool every second. The power is incredible, Rodriguez added. We use it to generate electricity for millions of homes. They use it. Humans had found a way to harness this massive display of natural force. Instead of running from it, they built machines to capture its energy. There are people down there. Vexana pointed to a small boat near the base of the falls. The tiny vessel was bouncing in the churning water like a toy. Tourist boat, Morrison said. They take people right up to the falls for a closer look. For a closer look. Humans paid money to get closer to something that could crush them instantly. This is insane, Crixnon said. Your entire species is insane. Morrison grinned. Maybe, but we're still here. Their final stop was a human hospital in nearby Buffalo. Dr. Corinne White met them at the emergency entrance. Her green scrubs stained with various fluids that the students' translators could not identify. Busy night, she said to Morrison. 3 car accidents, 2 hiking injuries, 1 guy who decided to pet a raccoon, and a kid who fell out of a tree. Car accidents, hiking injuries, petting wild animals, falling from heights. Just another normal day of humans hurting themselves in ways that would be impossible on most civilized worlds. Would you like to see our trauma bay? Dr. White asked the students. They followed her through corridors filled with injured humans. Most of them seemed surprisingly calm for people who had been damaged by their hostile world. Some were even laughing with the medical staff. This is Janet. Dr. White stopped by. A bed where a middle-aged woman had her leg wrapped in white bandages. She was rock climbing when part of the cliff broke away. Rock climbing. Humans deliberately climbed up dangerous vertical surfaces for entertainment. Will you be able to climb again? Morrison asked Janet. Oh, sure, Janet replied. Soon as this heals up. Can't let one little rock slide stop me. One little rock slide. The woman had been crushed by falling stone and was already planning to return to the activity that nearly killed her. They met more patients. A man who had been struck by lightning while playing golf. A teenager who broke several bones while jumping his bicycle over a creek. A woman who was bitten by a snake while gardening. Each of them treated their injuries like minor inconveniences. None of them seemed to consider avoiding the activities that hurt them. Don't you have safety regulations? Norbith asked Dr. White. Rules to prevent people from doing dangerous things? Dr. White looked puzzled. We have some rules about the most dangerous activities. But people have the right to take risks if they want to. Free will, you know. Free will to risk death for fun. The concept was completely alien to the students. As they prepared to leave the hospital, Dr. White pulled Morrison aside. How are they handling the culture shock? Morrison looked at the group of stunned alien students. About as well as expected. Tomorrow should really open their eyes. What's tomorrow? Dr. White asked. Morrison smiled grimly. Hurricane season. Zephyr heard the word and felt his crystal structure vibrate with fear. They had seen Earth's daily dangers, its crushing environment, its casual violence. Now they were going to witness one of its legendary storms. He was beginning to understand why the galaxy called Earth a Deathworld. What he could not understand was why humans seemed to love it anyway. The weather alert came at dawn. Commander Rachel Davis stood in the Emergency Operations Center, watching satellite images of a massive spiral cloud formation spinning across the Gulf of Mexico. The storm was enormous, covering an area larger than most of the students' entire home planets. Category 4 hurricane, Davis announced to the mixed group of humans and alien students. Sustained winds of 140 miles per hour, with gusts up to 170. Storm. Surge could reach 20 feet. Zephyr's environmental suit immediately began calculating the forces involved. Wind at those speeds would rip apart most structures on his world. Water moving at that height and speed would be like a liquid mountain falling on everything in its path. We need to evacuate immediately, Vexana said, her tentacles writhing, with panic inside her water suit. Return to orbit until this passes. The humans looked at her with expressions that might have been amusement. Evacuate? Davis asked. This is our job. We don't run from hurricanes. We work through them. Work through them. The students stared as humans began preparing for what could only be described as a natural disaster of planetary proportions. Instead of fleeing, they were organizing rescue operations. Tony Martinez finished loading his ambulance with medical supplies. His brown skin was calm despite the approaching storm. Been through dozens of these, he told the students. Rita, Katrina. Harvey, you learn to adapt. But you could die, Norbeth whispered. Her fur had turned white with terror. Could die crossing the street too? Martinez shrugged. That's not a reason to stop helping people. Firefighter Helen Parker was checking her gear nearby. She was. A small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but she moved with the same calm confidence as the larger humans. Storm like this will have people trapped in flooded buildings, injured by debris, stuck in cars. They need help, so we help them. They need help, so we help them. The humans were not just surviving their death world. They were actively protecting each other from it. How do you help anyone in those conditions? Crixlon asked. His forearms were shaking despite his environmental suit's stabilizers. Parker pointed to a large orange boat on a trailer. High water rescue vehicle. Can operate in flood conditions up to 8 feet deep. We also have helicopters for rooftop evacuations and all-terrain vehicles for debris navigation. They had specialized equipment for every type of disaster their world could throw at them. More than that, they had people trained to use it while the disaster was actually happening. The storm made landfall 6 hours later. The students huddled in a reinforced shelter, watching through armored windows as the world outside went completely insane. Trees that had stood for centuries were ripped from the ground and hurled through the air like toys. Buildings that looked solid and permanent crumbled under the wind pressure. Rain fell sideways, turning the air itself into a weapon. Noise was beyond description. It was like being inside a machine designed to destroy planets. The wind howled with voices that had no words. Metal creaked and snapped. Glass shattered somewhere in the distance. The entire world seemed to be screaming. This is impossible, Zefter said, his crystal structure resonating with the vibrations. Nothing can survive this. Next to them, a group of humans were playing cards. Construction worker Mike Johnson laid down his hand with a satisfied grunt. Full house, kings over tens. Lucky draw, said Nurse Patricia Lee, tossing her cards on the pile. Coffee's getting cold. Anyone want to warm up? They were drinking coffee. During a planetary catastrophe, these humans were calmly playing games and drinking hot beverages like they were at a social gathering. How are you so calm? Vexana asked through her suits. Speakers. Been through worse, Johnson said, dealing another hand. Hurricane Andrew, back in '92. Now that was a storm. This was not the worst storm they had experienced. The students exchanged looks of pure terror. Outside, the emergency teams were working. Through the chaos and destruction, vehicles moved like ghosts in the wind. Rescue boats navigated streets that had become rivers. Helicopters fought the storm winds to reach people trapped on rooftops. Davis coordinated everything from the command center, her voice steady over the radio as she directed resources to where they were needed most. Unit 7, we have reports of a family trapped in a collapsed house on Maple Street. Unit 12, elderly man on a roof at the corner of Oak and 3rd. People were trapped and dying out there, and other people were risking their lives to save them. Rescue boat Tango 4. What's your status? Davis called. Martinez's voice came back through static and wind noise. 3 people pulled from floodwaters, taking them to Evacuation Center Alpha, heading back out for more, heading back out into the storm. To save more people, the students watched rescue teams work through the night. They saw humans risk their lives over and over again to help complete strangers. Not because they were ordered to, but because it was simply what humans did when other humans were in danger. Why do they do it? Norbith asked. Her fur had gone gray with stress. They could stay safe in the shelter. Morrison, who had been quietly monitoring the rescue operations, turned to her. Because that's what communities do. We take care of each other. But it's so dangerous, Crixlon protested. Everything is dangerous here, Morrison replied. If we only helped people. When it was safe, we would never help anyone. As dawn broke, the storm began to weaken. The winds dropped from catastrophic to merely dangerous. The rain changed from horizontal sheets to heavy downpours. Through the gray light, the students could see the devastation. Entire neighborhoods were underwater. Cars floated like boats down what used to be streets. Buildings were reduced to piles of debris. Trees that had survived for decades were snapped like twigs, dotted looked like a war zone. And the humans immediately began rebuilding. Before the winds had completely stopped, people were emerging from shelters with tools and supplies. They waded through floodwaters to check on neighbors. They began clearing debris from roads. They shared food and water with anyone who needed it. The students joined the relief efforts, their heavy environmental suits making them clumsy, but allowing them to help move fallen trees and clear pathways. They worked alongside humans who had lost their homes, but were still helping others. Lost the roof and most of the second floor, said an elderly man named Bill Carson as he handed out sandwiches to rescue workers. But the kitchen still works, so I'm making lunch for anyone who's hungry. He had lost his home and was feeding other people. Insurance will cover most of it, said a woman named Mary Todd, whose house was completely gone except for the foundation. We'll rebuild. Always do. They always rebuilt. No matter how many times their world tried to destroy what they created, humans simply built it again. This is incredible, Zephyr said to Morrison as they watched a group of humans working together to move a fallen tree that was blocking an ambulance route. They're not just surviving, they're thriving, Morrison nodded. Earth is a harsh teacher, but it taught us that we're stronger together than apart. Every disaster, every challenge, every threat just reminds us that we need each other. As the day went on, the students began to understand something fundamental about humans. The Deathworld had not made them cruel or violent or selfish. It had made them incredibly, impossibly loyal to each other. When everything in your environment was trying to kill you, the only way to survive was to make sure everyone else survived too. Tomorrow we head back to the academy, Morrison announced as they watched the sunset through the clearing clouds. Any final questions about Earth? Vegasana's tentacles moved slowly, thoughtfully. Just one. How do we explain to the Galactic Council that humans are not dangerous because they're aggressive, but because they're the most protective species in the galaxy? Morrison smiled. I think they'll figure it out. The journey back to the Galactic Academy station felt different. The students sat quietly in their seats, watching Earth shrink behind them through the viewport. The planet still looked dangerous from space, with its swirling storms and harsh landscapes, but now they understood what lay beneath that hostile surface. Zephyr flexed his crystal fingers, remembering how they had worked alongside humans to clear debris after the hurricane. His people had always believed that strength came from avoiding conflict, from building perfect environments where nothing could go wrong. Humans had taught him that real strength came from facing problems together. I keep thinking about that man who lost his house, Vexana said through her water suit speakers. Bill Carson. He lost everything, But his first thought was to feed other people. Norbith's fur had returned to its normal brown color, but her voice was still quiet with wonder. On my world, if someone's home was destroyed, the whole community would spend months planning how to help them. Humans just started helping immediately. Crixlon nodded with all four arms. No meetings, no committees, no careful analysis of the best approach. They saw a problem and fixed it. Professor Diana Ross, a human anthropologist who had joined them for the return trip, listened to their conversation with interest. She was a small woman with gray hair and gentle eyes, but the students had learned that appearances meant nothing. When it came to humans, "What you witnessed," Ross said, "is what we call post-traumatic growth. When faced with extreme challenges, humans often become stronger rather than weaker, not just individually, but as communities." "How is that possible?" Zephyr asked. "Trauma should cause damage, not improvement." Ross smiled. "Earth taught us that survival depends on cooperation. When everything around you is dangerous, you learn to trust the people beside you completely. You learn that their survival is your survival." The transport ship docked at the academy with a soft thump. As they walked through the familiar corridors, the students realized how different everything looked now. The academy was beautiful, with its perfect temperature control and gentle lighting and safe, predictable environment. But it also seemed somehow fragile. "Welcome back," Dr. Chong greeted them at the debriefing room. "I trust your visit was educational?" Educational was not the right word. Life-changing might be closer to the truth. The formal debriefing took 3 hours. The students answered questions about what they had seen, what they had learned, and how it had changed their understanding of human civilization. Academy officials took careful notes, but Zephyr could see they did not really understand what the students were trying to explain. "So humans are not actually more aggressive than other species?" asked Dr. Veltar, the Academy's head of interspecies relations. His 6 eyes blinked independently as he processed the information. "They're more protective," Vexana corrected. "When something threatens their community, they respond with overwhelming force. But the force is always directed at protecting others, not conquering them. And this protective instinct extends beyond their own species?" Dr. Veltar asked. "We were never human," Crixlon pointed out. "But they kept us safe through a Category 4 hurricane. They treated us like part of their community from the moment we arrived." 3 days later, the real test came. The Galactic Council was meeting to vote on Earth's application for membership. The debate had been going on for months, with many species arguing that humans were too dangerous and unpredictable to be trusted with advanced technology and galactic citizenship. Zephyr stood before the assembled representatives, his crystal body reflecting the chamber's lights. Behind him, Vexana floated in her formal diplomatic water suit. Norbith's fur had been groomed to ceremonial perfection. Crixlon wore the traditional robes of his people. "Honored representatives," Zephyr began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "We come before you today to speak about humanity and their world of Earth." A murmur went through the chamber. Student testimony was rare in council proceedings, but their first-hand experience on the infamous Deathworld had earned them the right to speak. "We went to Earth expecting to find a species shaped by violence and hardship into something cruel and aggressive," Vexana continued. "What we found instead was a species shaped by violence and hardship into something beautiful." "Beautiful?" The representative from Peaceful Meadows, a world even more protected than Serenity Prime, sounded skeptical. "How can violence create beauty?" Norbith stepped forward. "Because humans learned that the only way to survive on their world was to take care of each other. Every disaster, every threat, every challenge made them more determined to protect their communities." "They have weapons," pointed out the delegate from Safe Harbor. "Terrible weapons designed for war." "Yes," Crixlon agreed. "And they developed Those weapons fighting each other, learning hard lessons about the cost of conflict. But look at what they do with those weapons now. They use them to protect the weak, to defend the innocent, to keep the peace. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives were nodding thoughtfully. Others looked unconvinced. "Are you saying humans are no longer dangerous?" asked the High Chancellor, a being so ancient that nobody remembered what species he had originally been. Zephyr considered the question carefully. "No, honored Chancellor, humans are incredibly dangerous. But they are dangerous the way a parent is dangerous when protecting their children. The way a guardian is dangerous when defending their community. We have studied dozens of species," Exana added. "All of them developed on worlds much safer than Earth. All of them learned to avoid conflict, to seek peaceful solutions, to build stable societies. But none of them learned what humans learned. Which is?" the Chancellor asked. "That sometimes the most peaceful thing you can do is fight," Norbith said. "That sometimes protecting others requires risking everything." Crixlon displayed a hologram of the hurricane aftermath. "We watched humans risk their lives to save complete strangers. We watched them share their food with people who had nothing. We watched them rebuild homes for neighbors before repairing their own damage. This is their nature," Zephyr concluded. "Earth made them strong, but it also made them kind. It made them fierce, but it also made them loyal. It taught them to fight, but it also taught them what was worth fighting for." The vote was unanimous. 6 months later, Zephyr stood on the observation deck of a new space station, watching human ships patrol the outer rim of Galactic Council space. Pirates had been threatening shipping lanes for years, but nobody had wanted to risk military confrontation. The humans had volunteered. "Merchant vessel Harmony's Dream. This is Human Defense Ship Liberty," came a calm voice over the communication system. "We're tracking 3 unidentified vessels approaching your position. Please alter course to coordinates we're transmitting." "Thank you, Liberty," replied the merchant captain, relief obvious in his voice. "We were getting worried about those shadows." "No problem, Dream. We'll escort you through this sector. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. Not to conquer or dominate, but to protect and serve." Vingzana joined Zephyr at the viewport, her new ambassador's insignia gleaming on her water suit. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Zephyr watched a human patrol ship move between a cargo hauler and potential threats, placing itself in danger to keep others safe. "I think the galaxy is a safer place with humans in it. Even though they're from a death world?" "Especially because they're from a death world," Zephyr replied. "Earth taught them lessons the rest of us never had to learn. Now they can teach those lessons to us." On distant Earth, hurricanes still raged and volcanoes still erupted. Earthquakes still shook the ground and predators still hunted in the darkness. But the humans who called that dangerous world home continued to take care of each other, to protect the weak, and to face every challenge together. And now they were doing the same thing for the galaxy. The Deathworld had created exactly what the universe needed. Guardians who understood that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the willingness to protect. As Zephyr watched the human ships disappear into the darkness between stars, he felt something his crystal people had never experienced on their perfect, safe world. He felt protected.